bathe in COVID.
Very
ask Ronnie presiding. Please see room.
Good morning. All right. The first thing I want to say is I get a call from my mother last night and my mother-in-law saying, "Why did you have your phone on the bench?" So I want to clear everything up. That was not my phone. That was a call through the computer system because I guess we have an open line for remote witnesses, so that it came through the computer system. Jamie says it's never happened before. But it came through the computer system and she hung up on it. So just for the record, that was not my phone. Okay? So I don't need that kind of grief from my mother, all right? Come on. Okay. Thank you. All right. So I think before the jury comes out, we do have one issue with Exhibit 2. Is it Exhibit 548? Plaintiff's Exhibit 548, okay? So you had offered it to come into evidence, and I know there was an objection. There was a lot of hearsay on it, and so is there a redacted copy for me, or is that something you haven't worked through?
We haven't seen it.
Okay. Okay, that's fine, Mr. Chu. I think it was her witness, but that's fine. Well, I know it's their exhibit, but you're offering it. And so if you're offering it, you have to redact it to basically, I think it's those two.
I wanted to make sure that, in fact, I was going to bring that up right away this morning. I wasn't sure of the court's ruling, so I didn't know what.
Well, I just wanted to make sure. I know there.
I think we need to work out the details on that, Your Honor.
Okay, if you could work out the details, so you owe me one exhibit, so we'll get that at some point today, right? Or even if, I guess, tomorrow when I see you guys, that's fine. Okay, perfect. All right. Anything else preliminary before the jury? Mr. Rottenborn?
One brief matter, Your Honor. May we approach?
Yes, that's fine. Okay. Are we ready for the jury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. All right. Your next witness,
Good morning, Your Honor. Our first witness is Kate James, by video.
okay, by video. I'm doing that 2 seconds earlier. Can you get the screen up? I like to get the screen up before, ladies and gentlemen, we usually try to get the screen up before you, because of that, the sound, but we'll get it up for you. Like this too. All right. I don't know.
Good morning, Ms. James. Can you please state your full name?
My name is Catherine Olwyn James.
What's your current address? Have you ever spoken with Ms. Vasquez before today?
Yes,
When?
I don't recall.
What was the substance of that conversation?
I don't recall.
Was it in the past month?
No.
Was it in the past year?
Yes.
Did you talk about this case?
No.
What did you talk about?
I don't recall.
If you don't recall, how can you recall that you didn't discuss this case? Have you discussed this case or the UK litigation with Mr. Waldman?
Yes, I discussed the UK case with Mr. Waldman.
What did you discuss about the UK case with Mr. Waldman?
Your Honor, can we stop this, please?
Okay.
I don't recall.
Could you pause, please?
No details whatsoever that you recall?
Yeah.
Did Miss
You could, there you go. All right, you want to approach? Or,
Sure.
I'm not sure. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to the video deposition, there are some extra statements that this witness made that aren't part of the video, but it is part of her testimony. So Mr. Rottenborn is just going to read those into the record and for you as well, okay?
Question. Have you spoken with Adam Waldman before? Answer, yes. Question. When was the last time you spoke with him? Answer, I don't recall. Question. How many times have you spoken with him? Answer, I would say somewhere around 10 times total. Question. Have you spoken with him in 2022? Answer, yes. Question. What was the substance of that conversation? Answer, friendly banter. Question. About what? Answer, nothing to do with the case at all. Question. What was it about? Answer, we have gotten to know each other, and, you know, I was on vacation, said Happy New Year, that's it. Question, did you call him or did he call you? Answer, I didn't call him. Question, did you text him? Answer, I sent a message saying Happy New Year to a lot of my friends. Question, over text? Answer, yes.
All right, thank you, sir. All right, you can continue the video.
Waldman assist you in preparing your witness statements for the UK litigation?
No.
Did you exchange drafts of those statements with Mr. Waldman?
No.
Who did you send those drafts to?
Shillings.
Is every word in those witness statements words that you drafted?
Yes.
Did anyone provide edits to those witness statements for your consideration?
I'm very good at my own editing, I can assure you.
That didn't answer my question. Did anyone else provide edits to those witness statements for
No.
your? Now, you've spoken with Mr. Depp since he and Amber got divorced, correct?
Correct.
When was the last time you spoke with him? You can answer.
I don't recall.
Was it within the past year?
No.
In any day prior to today, have you exchanged text messages with Mr. Depp?
Yes.
When was the last time, approximately, that you exchanged text messages with Mr. Depp?
I would say 2016. Oh, yeah, I think 2016, but it's a long time ago.
When was the last time you spoke with Amber Heard?
I don't recall.
Was it shortly after your employment with her ended in 2015?
No.
Was it after that?
No.
Have you spoken with her to the best of your recollection or communicated with her in any way in the past, say, 5 years?
No.
When were you hired by Ms. Heard?
In 2012,
How did you meet her?
her sister put an ad through, a recruitment system I use in my field.
Take me through the chronology of, well, let me ask it this way. When did would you describe your work for Ms. Heard as a personal assistant? Is that what you'd call your job title?
Yes,
When did you first start working as a personal assistant?
in 1999.
For how many people have you served as a personal assistant?
Maybe 6.
Since you left Ms. Heard's employment in 2015, for how many people have you served as a personal assistant?
1, that's the same person I work for to this day. I've been with him for 6.5 years.
Ms. James, have you had any other jobs since, other than this personal assistant job, since you left Ms. Heard's employment?
No,
Now, your work for Ms. Heard was it part-time or full-time?
it started as part-time and became full-time.
When did you change from part-time to full-time?
I don't recall.
What were your job duties?
Too many to mention.
Give me your best summary of what your job duties were, please.
Is this relevant? Okay, so let's see. I mean, if you are ready for a really, really long time of me explaining all of the details, that's fine. It's everything you could possibly do to run someone's life, okay? So it is grocery shopping. It is taking care of admin. It is running errands. It is getting the car fixed. It is getting the dogs groomed. It is picking up flowers. It is dealing with the decorator. It is dealing with the housekeeper. It is going on and on and on and on, and it goes on every single day. Arranging travel, dealing with all of the surplus staff around the travel, booking all the greeters, dealing with the changing of travel, okay, liaising with people that she's working with on films, updating her calendar accordingly, liaising with the people on set every single day to update her calendar to ensure that she knows what scene she's doing each day, what her call time is. Every day it's something different. But it's a lot. It's a myriad of things that go across the board daily.
You were paid for that work, correct?
Very poorly.
What were you paid? Was it $1,500 a week to start?
Kidding?
Is that what?
No, I wish. My God. No, it was not. She paid me $25 an hour to start off with, and she finally agreed, after screaming abuse at me, that she would pay me $50,000 a year once I went to full-time. And this was after me working for well over 10 years as a personal assistant. So it was very insulting to me, but I did it anyway because I had grandfathered in the ability to pick up my son from school and bring him to work with me at 3 o'clock.
And you could have left Ms. Heard's employment at any time, correct?
Yes.
You were based in Los Angeles when you were providing personal assistant services to Ms. Heard, right?
I have always lived in Los Angeles since 1999.
So you didn't travel with Ms. Heard when she was out of town, correct?
That was another part of our agreement, that I wouldn't travel with her because of my child.
And she was out of town quite a bit, right?
Not really.
Not really? How many weeks a year would you estimate Ms. Heard was out of town while you worked for her?
Well, you're talking almost 10 years ago, so I can't tell you quite honestly.
But when she was out of town, you wouldn't see, you never traveled with her, right?
No.
How much did you see Mr. Depp over the course of your employment with Ms. Heard?
Regularly.
how many times? Well, obviously you didn't see him when he was out of town, right?
No.
When he was in town, would you see him daily, weekly, monthly? What would you estimate?
There is no rhyme or reason to answer that question.
Now, you never witnessed any violence between Miss Heard or Mr. Depp, right?
No.
And Miss Heard never told you that she had been violent to Mr. Depp, correct?
No.
You had knowledge that Miss Heard and Mr. Depp had arguments, correct?
No.
Miss Heard never told you that she and Mr. Depp had arguments?
Occasionally she'd send a text message complaining about her mental state, but it's never clear exactly what was going on.
Okay, so you never...
It was like, I remember she would text me complaining about her mental state, and that was about it. I don't have any of the text messages, so it's hard to remember.
Do you recall hearing anything about an alleged incident between Amber and Johnny on a flight from Boston to LA around this time frame?
Like I said, I remember that day very well.
And to follow up on that, I'm not asking just about what Amber may have told you. I'm just trying to drill down generally to what you may have heard, whether from Amber or Johnny or anyone, about that flight. Does that make sense? So can you tell us, what do you remember hearing about that flight, or what happened or didn't happen on that flight from Boston to LA?
Don't know.
Sitting here today, you don't remember anything that you heard about that?
I don't know. I wasn't on the plane. I just know what happened afterwards, okay? When she asked me to come and meet her at the shuttle.
Did you think to ask her if she was okay?
You know, I probably did, because that's my role, to play a caregiver. That's all I can imagine.
So what do you remember about this day that you alluded to earlier?
Mostly my surprise that they went to the Chateau Marmont, because Amber had an apartment of her own in West Hollywood that was like completely set up and available to her. So that was my biggest confusion. Like, why did she go to the Chateau? And then she asked me to get her bathing suit. I remember that. So I had to go to her apartment to get her bathing suit, which again seems strange to me. And then what also seemed strange is when I got there, she had a bunch of friends with her. And originally I thought she was alone.
When you refer to Amber's apartment, are you referring to the apartment on Orange Avenue?
Yes, yeah.
And isn't it true that Mr. Depp would spend time in that apartment with Amber time to time, correct?
Well, I don't really know what the question is in relation to that. He wasn't there at that time, if that's what you're referring to.
Yeah, no, that's not my question. My question was just, over the course of your employment, you have knowledge of Mr. Depp spending time at that Orange Avenue apartment,
They spent
right?
time there, and at his residences, they would go around different places. Yeah.
Were you concerned about Miss Heard and her well-being on this day?
No, because it had become a pattern with her, and so I was merely placating her, I would say, and especially when I saw she was there with about 4 or 5 girlfriends and basically having fun, enjoying each other down by the pool. That's why she needed a swimsuit. And then they proceeded to hang there all day drinking while I sat around waiting with my son. Actually, I think it was a Sunday that day, I remember. We had to wait all day, and while they just hung around drinking by the pool. And then finally I went home, and finally she went back to her apartment. And then she wanted me to go back and pack her bag for her at about 10 o'clock at night on Sunday. And I said I couldn't go. By that point, I'd already spent the whole day sitting there. So I said I couldn't go and pack her bag because I'd already put my son to bed, and she was very angry about that. I remember that.
Okay, so so when you asked her if she was okay, you didn't actually care if she was okay. You said you were just placating her, right?
It was a standard procedure at this point. She was a very dramatic person.
So you didn't actually think that there was anything that Amber was actually upset, correct?
As I said, it just didn't make sense that she went to the chateau instead of going home. That was the first red flag for me that day. You know.
So you came to the conclusion that day that she actually wasn't upset. Is that what you're saying?
It's too much. I mean, I already answered once.
What I'm asking is, did you come to the conclusion that there was nothing wrong with Miss Heard that day and that she wasn't actually upset?
I don't know how to answer. I mean, it's such a strange question. Like they said, you already asked me and I already answered.
I'm asking you to answer it again. I don't think I asked the exact same question, but do your best, please.
Could you ask me the question in a different way or a clearer way that is not exactly the same as the last question you asked me?
Did you reach the conclusion that day that Miss Heard hadn't experienced anything traumatic?
Over the course of the day, I observed Miss Heard enjoying the company of her friends for several hours. That's all I have to say on that matter.
And would it be odd for someone who's experienced trauma to want to be around friends? To you?
Yeah, I don't know.
So in any event, you said you sat around at the Chateau Marmont. Is that right?
Yes, well, she was deciding what to do.
Now you were being paid for that time, correct?
Not overtime. It was a Sunday. I was not being paid. No.
Did you avail yourself of anything at the hotel? Like, did you order any food?
No.
Did you
I might have ordered some food for my son, actually, to be honest, now I think about it, because he was only little at the time. I think he was, 5 or something. So I might have ordered food for my son. I'm not a big eater. Food is not a huge priority for me.
Would you have put that on Miss Heard's tab that day?
Everything was on Depp's tab that day, so no.
On Johnny's tab?
Yes.
Let's bring up the document entitled, or that ends in 6151, please.
Showing exhibit 3 on the screen.
When she wrote, "I love you," and you wrote, "Love you too, hon, won't be long, X," was that just placating Miss Heard?
Standard friendly text exchange in my role of work.
Were you trying to be supportive at all, or just placating her?
A bit of both, I guess.
Did you have any concern whatsoever about Miss Heard's well-being that day?
No.
When was the first time that you remember Miss Heard telling you that all wasn't right in the relationship between her and Mr. Depp?
I don't recall exactly when it started, but it was usually her complaining and crying due to, I would say, insecurities within the relationship more than anything else. She would be very, very insecure a lot of the time, and she would call me up crying. I remember one time she called me when she was alone in New York City, and she was crying and walking around the street crying. And he wasn't there. She was alone, but I said to her that she needed to go inside because I was worried that the paparazzi might take a photo of her, and she was in a very dysregulated state. And so just out of kindness, I said to her it was better if she went inside rather than walking around crying in public. I remember that, but I don't remember exactly when that was. It might have been 2012 or 2013. As the job went on, we called each other less and less and did mostly text messaging. It was all text messaging we did.
Did you ever believe that Mr. mistreated her?
No.
So, and why not?
Just never any evidence of it at all. I was there almost daily in both her place and then eventually at his place in West Hollywood, and then ultimately at the lofts downtown. It was a daily basis experience, morning, noon, night, all days of the week. So, you know, I mean, I never once saw any evidence of anything.
Did Miss Hurd ever tell you that Johnny had hit her?
No.
Did she ever tell you that Johnny had pulled her hair or pushed her?
No.
Let me ask it a little bit differently. You never believed Miss Hurd that Mr. Depp had mistreated her. Is that correct?
At the time or after? I never believed it. In what context are you talking about? During my employ or afterward?
During your...
No, never. And there was never any damage to the apartment that I witnessed. There was never any aftermath of anything ever that I ever saw.
Now, you, of course, have no personal knowledge one way or the other whether Johnny was abusive to her, correct?
Well, I don't know if that's necessarily true, because if it was true, I would have seen the damage, even if I wasn't physically present in the moment of these alleged arguments.
And what's your basis for that statement?
Well, if someone's being beaten, there's generally physical evidence.
So your testimony is that if there was no physical evidence that you observed, then it couldn't have happened, the domestic violence by Johnny toward Amber. Is that your testimony?
No.
Well, I'm trying to understand what your testimony is. Maybe you could clarify for me, Ms. James. Is your testimony that if you never saw firsthand evidence of Johnny being violent to Amber, that it couldn't have happened?
That's not what I said. You're trying to put words into my mouth. I don't appreciate that.
Can you pull up the document that is, well, let me see what it ends with here. It's the Depp 11432, please.
Showing Exhibit 4 on the screen.
Can we?
Could you
And
pause for a moment,
I'll
please?
direct your attention to the
Okay.
This is a document that we're just looking for the corresponding trial exhibit. If you could just bear with us for 1 minute, and we'd like to move for admission of it.
All right. What's the number on it?
That's what we're trying to figure
Okay.
out. Sorry for the delay. Your Honor, it's trial exhibit 844.
All right. And that's defendant's 844?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, 844. Any objection to 844? All right, if you want to approach then, if somebody has a copy of 844 for me. Oh, we'll get it. We'll get it. That's all right. Oh, we'll get it.
Can you just wait 1 minute before you start the video? Yes, thanks.
Box at the bottom. Do you see your name Kate in that the column labeled participants?
Yeah.
Is this a text message that you received from Mr. Depp on or around August 13th, 2016?
Yes.
And it appears that he's responding to something that you had sent him, correct?
I don't know.
You see where he says, "Thank you, sweetheart"?
Yes.
He's directing that to you, right?
It looks like there's someone else CC'd on this text, so it could be to that person. I honestly don't know. I can't answer your question.
Could we please pause the video?
All right, could you pause for a second? Thank you. He already did. That was good. Thank you.
Nice work.
Could you switch
Your
to?
Honor, I'd like to.
We'll switch
we can
to-
our.
okay,
our-
that's fine.
Thank you.
Not yet, but don't, not yet. Don't. Make sure it's set right before you publish it. All right.
And Your Honor, with the stipulation that we'll prepare a redacted version to be entered into evidence that has other personal identifiers redacted, we'd ask for permission to publish, to admit this into evidence and publish to the jury.
All right. The objections are noted, and we will get the redacted copy. All right. So-
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Yeah.
Can you just blow it up, Heather?
All right. All right. Are we ready to continue?
Ready to resume with the video. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right.
Do you see where he says, we'll hit you when I get back, doll, come over for a spot of purple and we'll fix her flabby ass nice and good?
Yep.
Come over for a spot of purple means come over for a drink of wine, right?
I don't know.
That's what you understood it to mean, correct?
I don't know.
Lucian, can you pull up the documents labeled UK Trial Day 7 James testimony, please? And Ms. James, you remember giving testimony in the trial in the UK, right?
Well, there'd be something wrong with me if I didn't.
And in
I'm gonna
that,
need order in the
when
court.
you gave that testimony,
you.
you gave it under oath, correct?
Yes.
Lucian, can you please go to page 39 of the PDF? And can you please blow up the page that is labeled 1221? And on line 7, Ms. James, am I reading this right? You were asked a question, and he is inviting you over for a spot of purple. What is that? Yes, is your answer. Question, what did you understand? And you answered, red wine, I imagine. Do you see that?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Remember giving that testimony?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So is it your understanding that Mr. Depp was inviting you over for wine at some point after he split up from Miss Heard?
And just speculation.
Did you meet up with Mr. Depp for red wine around the time period of this text on August 13th, 2016?
I did meet up with him, but we did not drink red wine, no.
Was anyone else present for that meeting?
No.
When he said, come over for a spot of purple and we'll fix her flabby ass, you understood him to be referring to Miss Heard when he said, we'll fix her flabby ass, correct?
Yeah, it wasn't for me to speculate what he was referring to.
And I'm not asking for you to speculate what he was referring to. I'm asking for your understanding was that he was talking to Miss Heard, correct? You can answer.
There isn't an answer. I mean, this is the way he writes. It's very random and you don't sort of question it. Okay? It's just the way he writes. He writes in a very abstract way.
Okay. Lucian, if you can just pull up the prior testimony that we just looked at. Ms. James, isn't it true that on line 12 of page 1221, you were asked the question, red wine, and not only to come over for a spot of purple, but to fix her flabby ass. That was about Miss Heard, was it not? And on line 14, you answered yes, yes. Do you see that?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you did understand this to be referring to Miss Heard, correct?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you said no?
Just trying to be agreeable in the court, having no clue what on earth is going on. So there you go. I have no clue.
Was that answer in the court truthful or just agreeable?
Just being agreeable.
So it wasn't truthful? You can answer.
I don't have an answer for you, Mr. Rottenborn.
What did you and Mr. Depp talk about at that meeting that you recall?
I don't recall details.
Just tell me generally everything you recall.
It's too long ago, Mr. Rottenborn. I don't recall.
Do you recall anything?
No.
Where was the meeting?
At his residence in West Hollywood.
Is that his residence? What? I'm sorry.
In West Hollywood.
What time of day?
About 3 p.m.
So you recall the time of day, but you don't recall anything you discussed?
No, I'm just saying, I know it was in the afternoon because it was after I picked my son up from school, because my son went to swim in the pool with the security guards watching him while I went and had a brief conversation with Mr. Depp. That's the only reason I remember the time.
Did you talk about Miss Heard?
Yes.
What did you discuss about Miss Heard?
Like I said, I don't recall the details.
Well, I'm just a little confused because you just testified you didn't remember anything, but now you remember that you did talk about Miss Heard. So what I'm trying to get is everything you remember about the conversation.
Well, you've got to understand, Mr. Rottenborn, the mutual connection between Mr. Depp and myself is, in fact, Miss Heard. So inevitably, that is going to be part of the conversation. That's all I remember. Okay?
Do you remember anything else about that conversation with Mr. Depp?
No.
Have you seen Mr. Depp since that conversation?
No.
Now, just describe generally your educational background, please.
I completed high school and then I went straight into becoming a veterinary nurse when I left school, which I did for approximately 3 to 4 years before I left Australia.
Did you have any sort of specialized training in veterinary medicine or nursing?
Only on the ground experience, like 4 years in a clinic.
So you don't have any experience with medical training for humans, right?
No.
And you don't have any training in healthcare, correct?
Could you be more specific?
You don't have any training in healthcare for people, correct?
I'm not a human nurse, if that's your question. I don't really understand your question.
Sorry, you don't have any training related to prescription drugs, do you?
No.
And you have no basis.
Excuse me, only pertaining to animals. Yes, I would like to add that.
Okay, and that was the training that you received on the job in Australia before you came to the U.S.?
Amongst other things, yeah.
You're familiar with Miss Heard taking prescriptions for Accutane and Provigil, among other things, correct?
Objection.
You are not, you never served as a nurse or a doctor to Miss Heard, right?
No.
And you have no medical knowledge to testify whether Miss Heard used Provigil or Accutane in the way her doctors instructed, correct?
No.
And you're not an expert on the interaction of prescription drugs and alcohol or other drugs, correct?
No.
Did you, during the course of your employment, develop any personal knowledge of Mr. Depp's use of alcohol or drugs?
Not firsthand.
And what do you mean by not firsthand?
Well, I worked with Amber. I didn't work with him.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp using illegal drugs?
No.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp abuse alcohol?
No.
Did you ever speak with Dr. Kipper?
No.
Did you ever speak with Aaron Borum?
Yes.
And Aaron Borum was a nurse who worked for Dr. Kipper, right?
She was assigned to Amber. That's
sorry.
how I spoke to her.
I'm sorry.
She was assigned to Amber. That's how I came to be speaking to her.
And she also provided medical services to Johnny, right?
I don't know.
What do you recall speaking to Aaron Borum about?
Just random chit chat in the course of the day, nothing specific.
Do you recall ever forming any concern in your own mind about any of Mr. Depp's behavior in his relationship with Amber?
Never.
Nothing you heard, nothing you witnessed, nothing you saw during your time with Miss Heard ever gave you an inkling of concern about Mr. Depp's behavior toward Amber?
Never.
Now, you left your employment. Your employment with Amber ended in early 2015, correct?
Yeah, just after they came back from the wedding on the island.
Did Miss Heard terminate your employment?
When Miss Heard came back from the island, she informed me that she now needed to support her mother because her mother could no longer work after a diagnosis, a medical diagnosis, and she told me she could no longer afford to pay me since she had to support her mother, and therefore she would have to terminate my employment to support her family.
And did you resent Miss Heard for that, for terminating your employment?
It would have been nice to have been given some notice so I had some time to look around. So I was a little upset for the lack of notice. But apart from that, no, I was not upset.
Miss Heard gave you 6 weeks of severance pay, correct?
I don't recall.
Did you want to stay in the job for Miss Heard?
Well, I did ask if I could have a few months heads up so I could seek another job that would suit the terms of my employment, but she did not allow that.
And that made you angry, correct?
No.
Did you ask to be put on Mr. Depp's payroll so that you could remain being paid by Miss Heard or Mr. Depp?
Well, when she said she couldn't afford it, I said, now you're married, couldn't I go on to Depp's payroll? And she said, no, it was part of a legal agreement they had that she was not allowed to do that. I don't know whether that was true or not.
Did you ever ask Mr. Depp whether you could go on his payroll?
No.
Isn't it true that you asked to live in one of Mr. Depp's houses rent-free for a period of time after your employment?
Well, you see, I'm a homeowner, but I want to be clear. I didn't want to miss a mortgage payment due to unemployment. So my idea is perhaps I could find an alternate accommodation in order to rent out my house so I don't lose my entire property. I'm a homeowner. Keeping my home and my payments up to date is the paramount importance to me.
Isn't it true that you had already skipped about 1.5 years of mortgage payments on your home during the time you were employed by Miss Heard?
No.
Let's pull up the document ending in ALH 5858, please.
Have Exhibit 11 on the screen.
Yeah, I think you've read everything. So if you're ready for me to ask you questions, my first question is just: is this an email exchange between you and Amber relating to the termination of your employment?
Yeah, this is the email I received when she terminated me.
And then the emails above in this document, are some of which are duplicated, are an email exchange that you had with Amber after you received the termination email.
Yeah, when I woke up that morning, yeah.
can you go to the first page, please? Top of the document. Isn't it true that Miss Heard did pay you 6 extra weeks of pay after your termination?
She's stating that, but I don't recall if it actually happened or not.
You don't have personal knowledge one way or the other, or a recollection of whether she did?
No.
And isn't it true that you do tell her in this email that you didn't pay your mortgage for the first year and a half that you were working for her?
Yes,
Correct?
I had one of those balloon mortgages, so I had to go through a loan modification, and I recall now that that's why I was able to agree to work for her for such a small amount of money than what I normally made. It was sort of as a favor almost.
What was a favor?
To work for her for like half my usual paycheck, basically.
So you were doing Amber a favor?
Yes, because initially it was described as a part-time, 20-hour-a-week thing with flexibility and blah, blah, blah. So, you know, I thought it's not really in my caliber, but my son was only 4 at the time, so it seemed like a good idea, especially because I wasn't paying my mortgage, so I could take the hit by getting less pay than I would normally make. And that way I could also have the time with my son that I wanted.
Are you, and I think the answer to this is no, but I just want to be clear. You're not blaming Amber for you're not paying your mortgage, right?
No, that was my choice. That was the only way I could get a loan modification. Was the way it worked back then. But you know the 2008 crash, that's how it worked back then. If you wanted to save property. Well,
And you started working for Amber in 2012, right?
yes, it took a long time, the loan modification process.
And you're not blaming Amber for getting a credit card with 29% interest, are you?
What?
You see in your email on that first page, about 2/3 of the way down, you say, I have borrowed from my mom my tenant's security deposit, and now I have used up a credit card I should use as it has 29% interest.
Oh, that's my choice.
Did you have tenants in your property at that time?
I have a duplex. I'm just trying, and that time, yes, I had tenants in one house and I was living in the other.
Did you use those tenants' security deposit for personal expenses?
I don't remember.
Do you see where you say, I have borrowed from my mom my tenant's security deposit? Does, do you recall using your tenant's security deposit or borrowing from that?
It's too long ago for me to recall if it actually happened.
Would there be a reason that you would have said that if it wasn't true?
No.
And isn't it true that you did ask to live rent-free in one of Johnny's houses after you were terminated, right?
Lots of people did.
And isn't it true that you did?
Yes.
And did that ever come to pass?
No.
Did it make you angry that that didn't happen?
No.
It's fair to say at the time that your employment was terminated, you were in fairly significant financial trouble, correct?
Yes.
And you were angry with Amber for terminating you at this time when you were in financial trouble, correct?
No.
See at the bottom of your email on page 2, you say, Max and I love you very much, as the sign off to your email.
Yes.
And Max is your son, right?
Yes.
That wasn't true, correct? In fact, you didn't love Amber. You didn't like her, did you?
Any close relationship has ebbs and flows in the energy that you feel towards one another. It's pretty standard.
And at that point in time, you, well, since your termination, you've had nothing but animosity toward Miss Heard, correct?
No, I actually bumped into her at the P.O. box about 3 months after, and she was in her Range Rover, and I saw her sister and she said, come say hi to Amber. And I went back there and I was going to say hi, but she was on the phone and she was saying, wait, but then I had to go. That's the only time I've ever seen her, but I wanted to go and say hi. I wasn't feeling like I wanted to avoid her or anything. You know, things happen and life goes on, you know.
I understand you're a personal assistant, Ms. James. What type of people do you work for?
High-profile celebrities.
Are they celebrities in the entertainment industry?
Yes.
You previously testified that in March of 2012, you worked as a personal assistant for Ms. Heard, yes?
Yes.
In total, how long did you work for Ms. Heard as her personal assistant?
Almost 3 years.
And at the time you were hired in March of 2012, had you ever heard of Ms. Heard?
No.
You previously testified today that at some point while working for Ms. Heard, you transitioned from working part-time to full-time. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
When did that transition happen?
I don't recall specifically.
Do you think it happened within the first year of your employment?
I believe it happened within around 6 months into the employment.
So most definitely it happened in the first year of your employment. Is that correct?
Yes.
You previously testified that you stopped working for Ms. Heard as her personal assistant in February of 2015. Is that right?
Yes.
And you also testified that Ms. Heard let you go upon her return from the Bahamas in February of 2015. Yes?
Yes.
Did Ms. Heard ever give you any indication or warning that your employment might end upon her marriage to Mr. Depp?
No.
How did it make you feel when Ms. Heard terminated your employment without warning?
Bit of a shock, a bit of a feeling of being blindsided.
When you first began working for Ms. Heard, and when Ms. Heard was in town, in other words, not traveling, how many times per week would you see her?
Almost daily.
And did that change when you became a full-time personal assistant for Ms. Heard?
No.
Would you see Ms. Heard on the weekends as well?
Yes.
And when you would see Ms. Heard in person, did you coordinate with her when you would be seeing her?
No, I would arrive whenever it was necessary to bring stuff that I'd picked up on errands or whatnot. There was no given set schedule.
And when you say you would arrive, where would you arrive to?
It depended where she was at the time. Sometimes she was at Orange, sometimes she was at one of Johnny's houses on Sweetser, and then eventually they all moved down to the lofts downtown.
You previously testified that your work as being Ms. Heard's private assistant was extensive. Would you please tell us everything that you were responsible for?
Everything from handling all of her dry cleaning, picking up packages, mail, liaising with agents, other people in the industry, coordinating travel, making restaurant reservations, dealing with the staff, the vendors on the property, that sort of thing.
Did Ms. Heard ever ask you to monitor press for her?
Yes.
What specifically did she ask you to do?
I had a newsstand guy that was instructed to hold 2 copies of every magazine she appeared in. Was a newsstand on Sherbourne Avenue, just off La Cienega, and he would hold them for me, and I would go there once a week to pick up the pile of magazines.
I'm sorry, you got muffled out. You said, and he would hold those for me,
He
and
would hold them for me, and I would go approximately once a week to pick up whatever magazines Amber was featured in, 2 copies of each, which I would then store in her garage.
Why would you store them in Ms. Heard's garage?
Because she didn't want Mr. Depp to see them.
Did she tell you why she didn't want Mr. Depp to see them?
No, she just got very angry with me one day because I hadn't quite made it downstairs to put them in the garage when she came home, and she went absolutely ballistic over that.
When you say she went absolutely ballistic over that, can you please describe what you mean?
Screaming, yelling, abuse.
Do you remember what she said to you?
No.
But it was abusive in your opinion?
Blind rage.
Over the 3-year period in which you worked for Miss Heard, were you ever with Miss Heard when she was getting dressed or undressing?
All the time.
How often were you present when Miss Heard was getting dressed?
Every time she was getting dressed for a fitting, I would say 90% of the time I was there.
And just to clarify, was it just when Miss Heard was in fittings that you would see her in states of undress?
No, it was also in her apartment. She had no issue with walking around naked quite often.
Did you ever observe Miss Heard putting on makeup?
Yes.
How often did you see Miss Heard doing her makeup?
Just when she was getting ready to go out somewhere for a party or something.
And when you interacted with Miss Heard, and I understand it was quite frequent and regular, did it appear to you that she was wearing makeup?
She usually never wore makeup unless she was going to a special event.
And when she did go to special events, would you describe her makeup as heavy?
It would depend. It would, a makeup artist would do it, or if she would do it herself. If she did it herself, it would be light and usually adding lashes, and that's about it.
And I believe you previously testified to this, so I'm sorry for asking you again, but while you worked for Miss Heard, did you ever see any types of injuries on her?
No.
Did you ever see any cuts?
No.
Did you see bruises?
No.
Did you see swelling?
No.
Redness in her face?
No.
How about Miss Heard having black eyes?
Never.
A broken nose?
Never.
Missing hair clumps? I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Ms. James.
Never.
Did you ever see Miss Heard cry?
Yes.
How often did you see her cry?
Hard to put a number on it. Sometimes she would cry on the phone. I think at least once or twice she might have cried on the phone. You know, and then as far as seeing her personally crying, you know, she was a pretty dramatic person. It's hard to really put a number on it.
I'm focusing on when you saw her in person crying. How many times do you believe that you saw her in person crying?
I would say twice, maybe twice.
Let's take that in bite sizes. The first time you saw Miss Heard cry in person, do you recall what she was crying about? Go ahead, Miss James.
Insecure emotions.
So the 2 times that you recall Miss Heard crying in front of you, you remember her crying about being insecure. Is that correct?
Yes.
You testified that she felt insecure about her relationship. Is that correct?
Yes.
Can you expand on that? What do you mean by that?
She didn't like being away from his physical presence.
Did Miss Heard tell you that she felt insecure when Mr. Depp wouldn't be present with her?
Yeah.
Other than telling you she felt insecure about her relationship with Mr. Depp, what else did Miss Heard say about feeling insecure?
She told me she didn't like hanging out in his house with his friends because it was boring and they were all old men playing guitars and it wasn't interesting to her.
Was Miss Heard dating Mr. Depp when you first started working for her?
Yes.
When did you first learn that Miss Heard was dating Mr. Depp?
After about a month, I think.
How did you learn that she was dating Mr. Depp?
She told me.
What did she tell you?
She told me she was dating Johnny Depp.
Do you recall the first time you met Mr. Depp?
Yes,
When was that?
it was in her apartment on Orange. Probably shortly after she told me she was dating him. He was standing in the dining room.
And approximately when was that?
I don't remember. I would say April or May of 2012.
What was your impression of Mr. Depp?
He was very peaceful, very calm, almost shy, and very quiet. And I remember he was wearing red suede shoes because I didn't know where else to look. I looked at his shoes. It was it's a weird recollection, I know, but I'm just being honest.
Did you ever witness Mr. Depp be rude to anyone?
He's such a gentleman. He's like a total Southern gentleman. So no.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp lose his cool?
No.
Did you ever see him scream at anyone?
No.
Did you ever see him break something?
Only in a video.
In your presence, did you ever see Mr. Depp break something intentionally?
Never break anything, never throw anything, always completely passive.
I believe you've testified previously that you have a son, correct?
Yes.
How old was your son when you first started working for Ms. Heard?
4 years old.
And did you ever bring your son to work with you?
Yes.
How often?
Quite often, if I had to keep working, I would bring him back there after school. And if I had to work on the weekends, he would come with me then.
Did Mr. Depp ever interact with your son?
Yes, he was very kind.
How often did Mr. Depp interact with your son?
Whenever they were in each other's presence.
Can you give me an estimate of how often that happened?
Oh, countless times. He would even teach him how to play guitar. He brought him back from vacations. He showed him his amazing makeup makeover when he was doing Black Mass. He tricked him. He leant over and was saying, "Do you know who I am?" And he had the full makeup on his son's jaw, almost hit the ground. It was really cute, actually. Yeah. He gave my son a little pick as well, a guitar pick, which he cherishes to this day as well.
Fair to say you were around Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard together quite a lot.
Yeah, it became increasingly more as the time went on. Yeah.
What was your impression of Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp's relationship?
It did not seem like a perfect relationship to me, based on a lot of insecurity on her behalf, which seemed to cause confusion in the relationship. Maybe the age gap was an issue because of their interests. I know that much. Apart from that, who am I to know the relationship, you know?
Do you think that Mr. Depp was smothering of Ms. Heard?
Oh, no.
Did it appear to you that Mr. Depp was jealous of Ms. Heard?
No.
Did you ever have interactions with Mr. Depp by yourself?
Sometimes, yeah.
And what were those interactions like?
Just friendly chit chat, which would stop immediately when Amber saw me speaking to him. She'd give me the evil eye, and I'd know to just quickly walk away.
Did Amber ever talk to you about your interactions with Mr. Depp?
No.
the 3 years that you worked for Ms. Heard, did you ever see Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp argue?
No.
In the 3 years that you worked for Ms. Heard, did you ever see any physical violence between Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp?
Never.
Did you ever see either of them being physically aggressive with one another?
No.
Did you ever see any property damage at Ms. Heard's home?
Never.
Did you ever see any property damage at Mr. Depp's primary residence on Sweetser?
Never.
Did you ever see any property damage at the lofts or the penthouses at the Eastern Columbia building?
No. No, never.
Over the 3-year period in which you worked for Ms. Heard, did you ever hear from anyone that Mr. Depp or Ms. Heard had been in a physical altercation?
No.
Over the 3-year period in which you worked for Ms. Heard, did you ever see Ms. Heard be physically aggressive with anyone?
No.
Let's break that down a bit. When you say she was verbally abusive to you regularly, can you explain to me how she was verbally abusive to you?
Screaming, screaming over the phone. She screamed at me once in person, multiple times screaming at me over the phone. Barrages of abusive text messages, day and night, a lot of them in the middle of the night, I think you're aware. I think between 2 and 4 a.m. the barrage would start. That's what I'd wake up to. All incoherent, not really making sense, just basically someone to lash out at, you know, no apparent reason to it.
You testified previously that you observed Ms. Heard be verbally abusive to her sister.
Yes.
What do you recall about that?
It was
abuse?
ongoing kick the dog kind of relationship with her sister, so it's really hard to pinpoint any specifics, but yeah, her poor sister was treated like the dog that you kick, basically.
You previously testified that you observed Ms. Heard be verbally abusive to her mother.
Mm-hmm.
What specifically did you observe?
Well, there is a video that online where you can see her being abusive first and foremost, so it's not even based on what I'm telling you. It's what I've seen, the interactions between the two of them when her mother was still alive, and the fact that her mother was terrified of her.
Did her mother tell you she was terrified of her?
She personally told me she was terrified of her.
Did you ever witness Ms. Heard tongue lash her mother?
Here and there, yes. Especially when it was a build up to a stressful event or something like that, yeah.
You said you felt that Ms. Heard was verbally abusive to you. Can you provide me with any specific examples of this behavior?
Well, I thought I did earlier, but yeah, it was just so random and ongoing. You would never know when it was going to come left of center. I do remember on one occasion when we were moving from part-time to full-time, and then the salary negotiations became a real bone of contention. And I specifically remember standing in her office where she leapt up out of her chair, put her face approximately 4 inches from my face. She was spitting in my face and telling me how dare I ask for the salary I was asking for, which was in fact approximately half of my regular annual salary. I was offering her that as a favor, and she felt that gave her the right to spit in my face. And there was a witness in the apartment at that time, by the way.
Who was at the apartment at the time?
The handyman, Hector Galindo.
I'm sorry?
The handyman, Hector Galindo. He was so mortified. He was so embarrassed to hear her speaking to me like that.
Miss James, while you worked for Miss Heard, did you ever observe her drinking alcohol?
Yes, I did.
How often did you observe Miss Heard drink alcohol?
Don't recall.
What alcohol did you observe Miss Heard drink in your presence?
Red wine.
Did Miss Heard ever appear intoxicated to you?
Yes, she often did.
While you worked for Miss Heard, were you aware of what, if any, prescription drugs she was taking?
Yes, because I had to pick it up and I often had to deliver it to her to
You
set.
anticipated. I'm sorry, Miss James, I interrupted your question, or your answer, excuse me. The last part of your answer was to,
It was my job to pick it up and deliver it to her, also bring it to her if she was doing a photo shoot or, on set or something, if she'd forgotten it.
what prescription drugs do you remember picking up from Miss Heard?
Provigil,
Any other prescription drugs that you remember picking up from Miss Heard?
Accutane,
Any others?
not specifically.
To your knowledge, did Miss Heard ever stop taking Provigil or Accutane while you were working for her?
No,
Did Miss Heard ever tell you that she was experiencing any side effects from Provigil?
she didn't say it, but I observed it.
We'll go back to that in a minute, but did Miss Heard ever tell you that she was experiencing any side effects from Accutane?
No,
You previously testified that you observed Miss Heard having certain side effects from Provigil. Yes?
yes,
What side effects did you observe Miss Heard exhibiting?
manic episodes.
Can you tell me what you mean by manic episodes?
Similar to if someone was on some sort of amphetamine drug. Moving very fast, not making a lot of sense, hyper organizing, hypertasking, just very, very hyper. Yeah.
Besides prescribed medication, did you ever observe Miss Heard ingest any illicit drugs while you worked for her?
No,
Did Miss Heard ever tell you that she had ingested illegal drugs?
yes,
When did Miss Heard tell you that she had ingested illegal drugs?
sporadically here and there.
What drugs did Miss Heard tell you she had ingested?
Mushrooms, ecstasy, and cocaine.
If you remember, how many times did Miss Heard tell you that she had ingested illegal drugs?
I can't remember.
Based on your personal observations, did it ever appear to you that Miss Heard was under the influence of illegal drugs?
Yes,
How many times?
I don't know.
Less than 5?
It's so long ago, it's hard for me to remember.
why did you why did it appear to you that Miss Heard was under the influence of illegal drugs?
Disoriented, partying with friends, lots of heavy drinking, laughing, dancing, playing, all the sorts of things that go hand in hand with imbibing in drugs.
Would Miss Heard's treatment of you change when she was intoxicated?
Yes,
How so?
she became more and more belligerent and abusive.
Ms. James, you previously testified that you provided testimony in a matter involving Mr. Depp in the United Kingdom. Do you remember that testimony?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And how did you provide testimony in the United Kingdom?
Well, I wrote a witness statement and then I had to do a live video feed.
And did you understand that your witness statement was made under oath?
Yes.
And did you understand that your testimony during the trial live was also under oath? Did anyone help you write your witness statement?
Shillings over in the UK helped me with the first draft, and then I took over and completely edited it to be my own words. That was after a phone conversation we had. They jotted down notes, sent me some basic notes to work with, and then I worked on it from there.
How long did it take you to write your witness statement?
About 3 or 4 days.
Did you feel you had an adequate amount of time to prepare and write your witness statement?
Yes, I was very proud with the outcome of how I wrote it because it was all my words and it was the absolute truth.
And did you have enough time to review your witness statement for accuracy before you signed it?
Yes.
Was everything that was in your witness statement true and accurate to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
And is that still true today? Lucian, may I please have you pull up Depp exhibit number 4, please?
Showing Depp exhibit number 4 on the screen.
Thank you. Ms. James, do you remember receiving an email from Ms. Heard on or about February 12th, 2015?
I don't even believe I was still working for that date.
Do you remember receiving this email in particular from February 12th, 2015?
Again, I don't, as far as I know, I wasn't even working for her at that time, so I wouldn't even know why she wrote this letter to me, quite honestly.
Do you remember receiving this email then?
No.
Okay. Can we please pull up exhibit number 5?
Stand by. Showing Depp exhibit number 5 on the screen.
Lucian, may I ask you to, there you go, you read my mind. Lucian, may I either take control or have you scroll down to the bottom? Thank you. James, the way these emails tend to work is they start at the bottom and then go up. And this one is no exception. So I'm going to, for your ease, I'm going to have you read the bottom email first, since it's the first one in the chain, dated February 3rd, 2015.
Looks like she was travelling straight to London after the wedding. That's what I'm reading.
Do you remember, actually, you know what? Why don't you read this entire email chain, and then I'm going to ask you some questions about it.
Can you help me? Oh no, it's moving. I don't know. It's being finicky.
No, do you have control of this?
I do have control. Sorry, Miss James.
Yeah, I can go up a bit more now.
Do you remember receiving these emails from Miss Heard?
Not really, no. No.
Do you see where Miss Heard on February 4th, 2015 writes in all caps, "Are there no direct flights? Question mark, exclamation." I'm just pointing her to the top email, Mr. Rottenborn. Do you see where Miss Heard writes to you, "Are there no direct flights," in all caps?
Yeah.
You would agree with me that nowhere else in this email chain Miss Heard uses all caps to write to you, correct?
No, there's not. She seems very confused. That's all I can say. When I'm reading through this, she just seems to be very confused. And the thing is like if that question were to be directed to anyone, it should have been to the travel agent, not me. I mean, I'm not the travel agent. The travel agent was down there in the beginning, Trudy Sullivan.
Directing your attention, Miss James, to May of 2014, when you met Miss Heard at the Chateau Marmont in Los Angeles, California. Do you remember your testimony about that incident? You testified previously that Miss Heard asked you to bring a bathing suit to the hotel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Did you see Miss Heard wearing a bathing suit in May of 2014 at the Chateau Marmont?
Yes.
Based on your recollection, did you see any bruises on Miss Heard's body?
Objection.
No.
Did you see any red marks on Miss Heard's body?
No.
How would you describe the general atmosphere or mood of Miss Heard and her friends at the Chateau Marmont?
To be honest, it seemed a little conspiratorial to me. Yeah.
How so?
Like a strategy meeting or something, and combined with a pool party. Hard to describe. It was very confusing. Originally, I thought I was going over for some major emergency, but then something else completely different was going on that day.
What made you think something completely different was going on that day?
Well, because originally it made it seem like she was having this major emergency and she was completely alone and she needed me very badly to come as quickly as possible. But when I got there, she was surrounded by people. Savannah, Io, Tillett Wright, and Rocky specifically, Raquel Pennington.
What was the second name you said? I got Rocky and who?
Io, Tillett Wright. It's the letter I, the letter O. Tillett Wright.
Did you observe Miss Heard showing what appeared to be injuries to any of her friends at the chateau that day?
No.
Did it appear to you that Ms. Heard's friends were comforting her? How would you describe Ms. Heard's friends' behavior?
Friends hanging out together by the pool, having cocktails and spending the entire afternoon hanging around together.
Did you ever learn information that made you believe that one of the reasons that their relationship between Johnny and Amber wasn't, as you described, perfect was because of Johnny's substance abuse?
I couldn't speculate on the details of their personal relationship.
You did testify earlier that one of the reasons you thought their relationship wasn't perfect was insecurity on Amber's part, though, right?
Yes.
So you developed an opinion that insecurity on Amber's part affected their relationship, but you did not develop an opinion that substance abuse or any actions by Johnny affected their relationship. Is that right?
That statement was based on communications directed to me from Amber, basically.
What communications specifically?
Expressing, exactly what I just stated. That she was sad, she didn't want to be away from him, blah, 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 that sort of thing. It would happen all the time.
And you believe that those statements were the reason that their relationship wasn't perfect?
It's not for me to speculate.
You would agree that just because someone is insecure in a relationship does not mean that she deserves to be abused, correct?
I have no answer for you for that.
You would agree that even if someone acts quote unquote smothering in a relationship doesn't mean she deserves to be abused, correct?
I don't have an answer for you for that.
I don't have any further questions. Thank you for your time today.
All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and take our morning recess for 15 minutes. No outside research, do not talk about the case, right? Okay, thank you. All right, let's go ahead and take a break until noon. Is your next witness, we're going to set it up so it's all ready to go in next, okay. I really appreciate that. Okay, thank you. We'll be in recess till noon.
Laurel Avis Anderson.
And what is your business address?
It's been a while. 10921 Wilshire Boulevard, Westwood Medical Plaza, Suite 1101, Los Angeles 90024.
And you're a clinical psychologist, is that correct?
Correct.
And you practice in Los Angeles?
Yes.
For how long have you been practicing?
Almost 40 years.
Have you been practicing in Los Angeles for that entire time?
Yes.
And you provide counseling for couples?
Psychotherapy for individuals and couples.
And what is psychotherapy? Just a brief layman's description.
It's an evaluation of an individual or a couple's problems, and then it's a conceptualization of what's actually going on and an effort to make intervention that leads to change.
Do you recognize what this document is?
Yes.
What is it?
This is my ledger for tracking sessions that I use for invoice billing.
And did this ledger come out of your files?
Yes,
And do you keep this document in the ordinary course of business?
absolutely.
And I just want to, and this particular ledger, who is it for?
It's, well, despite the names that are camouflaged, it's for Ms. Heard and Mr. Depp.
At the top, what are the two names that it says there?
Anne Henry and Joey Davis.
And Anne Henry's Amber Heard,
Yes,
and Joey Davis is Johnny Depp.
yes,
And then it says age 29 and 52. Is that right?
yes,
And 29 was the age of Amber Heard at the time,
yes,
and 52 was the age of Johnny Depp.
yes,
So as I understand it, on October 1st, 2015, Mr. Depp and Amber Heard came in for couples counseling for 3.5 hours.
yeah, yes. Whether they were in for the full 3.5 or not, I don't know. But that was the amount of, that was when the session started, and they came in when they came in and not together. And it took 3.5 hours to actually do that first session.
So as I understand it, for that first session, Mr. Depp and Amber Heard did not come in together.
I don't believe that they did. The next session with Miss Heard alone for background intake, and that was a 2 1/3 hour session.
And that session was on October 6th, 2015.
Yes.
And what's the next row
The
indicating?
next day,
You saw Amber on October 6th, 2015 for 2 1/3 hours, correct?
yes.
And what is the next row indicating?
The next day, October 7th, Mr. Depp for 3.5. Again, it may not have been face-to-face for the full 3.5, but it was being at the beginning of the session, waiting for him, his coming in with the entourage and our getting to work.
And for the three sessions we just discussed, the October 1st session, the October 6th session, and the October 7th session, those were all in person with you, correct?
So yes, the first 3 sessions were all in person.
And then what does it say for the next row, for the 1014 row?
Couple, 3 hours.
So on October 14th, 2015, Amber Heard and Mr. Depp saw you for couple session.
Yes,
There's a couple session on October 14th for 3 hours. Is that right?
10:14, there's a couple session. On 10:21, there's a couple session where someone walked out for 2 hours. On 10:24, Ms. Heard was there, did a phone session for 1.5.
On the 1024 row, next to the 2 hours, it says W out, correct?
It's 10:21.
In the 1021 row, what does it say in the 4th column?
For me, that's walk out.
And do you recall who walked out of that meeting?
I have tried to, and I don't, because each threatened and stood up, and I'm not positive who finally did the walkout.
And then what does it say? What is it indicating on the row for 1112, 2015?
Couple session showed 1.5 hours.
And then on 1217, what does that show?
Amber alone showed 2¼ hours.
Based on this ledger, you saw Amber and Mr. Depp for 4 couple sessions.
That's right.
Dr. Anderson, I'm showing you it's been marked as Anderson 3.
And Your Honor, at this time, we're looking to move defense exhibit 397. I understand there's no objections from
All right.
plaintiff's side.
397, no objection, is that correct?
You do have hearsay and relevance objections.
They didn't list objections in their exhibit list, and then we actually communicated this morning, and they said they weren't objecting.
All right, do you know who on the team you talked with? I'm sorry.
You want me to-
No, that's, just who?
I believe it was Jessica Myers who said
Okay,
no objection.
all right, so no objection, all right, that's okay. 397 in evidence then, defense 397.
And I will let you, which is CC 000172, I'll let you take a look at it. So it's a 1-page email. So let me know when you're finished. Do you recognize this email chain?
Yes,
Do you know who Christian Carino is?
yes, again,
On the page where it says laurel.anderson28@gmail.com, that's your email address?
yes,
The email of March 28th, 2015 from Mr. Carino, he wrote, Laurel, my closest friend, Amber, on copy, wants to come see you alone first and then with her husband, Johnny. We'll leave it to you two to arrange a time. Love you both. You see that email? Did you receive that email from March 18th, 2015?
I did.
And you responded to Mr. Carino's email, correct?
As you can see, yes.
What was your understanding as to why Amber Heard wanted to meet with you?
I took it at face value that Ms. Heard wanted to have a consultation, and if this is not infrequent that I might get an email like this, so, and when I hear that someone may then later want to come in with their husband or spouse, yes, I think it has to do with relationship issue.
On September 9th, 2015, you received an email from Mr. Carino, is that right?
Yes, apparently. He was trying to set it up.
And Mr. Carino was trying to set up a meeting with you and Amber and Mr. Depp, is that right?
Yes, that's what I assumed.
And you responded to Mr. Carino's email, correct?
I did.
And then at the top, you received an email from Amber Heard.
Yes.
And she wrote, "Hi, Laurel, thank you so much for responding. I really appreciate it. I have to speak to my husband when he's done working today and make sure he's good with that time. I think it sounds perfect. Thank you so much again. I'm really looking forward to meeting you." Did I read that correctly?
Yes.
And you received that email from Amber Heard?
I did.
On September 27th, 2015, you received an email from Amber Heard, correct?
Yes.
And Amber wrote, "Hi, Laurel. Johnny and I are back in town and would love to know if you have any availability to see us this week. Please let me know. Thanks." You received that email from Amber Heard?
Yes.
And you responded that you were available on Thursday at 5:30 p.m., correct?
Yes.
And looking at the top of the email where it says Wednesday, September 30th, would you agree that the next day is Thursday, October 1st, 2015?
Yes.
Okay. And we can go back to your billing ledger, but the first time you saw Amber Heard and Mr. Depp was on October 1st, 2015. Is that right?
Yes.
Did you see Amber Heard on December 17th, 2015?
Yes. We had established that, yes.
Exhibit 7 on screen.
Dr. Anderson, I'm showing you it's been marked as Anderson Exhibit 7, which is depth 3202. take a chance, read it, and let me know when you're finished.
Yes.
Attachment 7 is at the bottom is you see a March 8th, 2016 email from Christian Carino to you, correct?
Yes.
And Christian Carino was asking if you would be willing to make a house call to Johnny Depp's apartment downtown. Is that right?
I did not know where he lived.
His email says, would you be willing to make a house call to Johnny's apartment downtown, correct?
Did it say downtown? Yes, it did. Okay.
And then you responded on March 8th, 2016, correct?
Yes.
And you wrote, hey, Christian, have of course avoided this my whole career unless someone was in rehab. Would be willing to try it once, and that there's something I'd like Johnny to understand, and I don't think he does. Where you wrote, I'd like Johnny to understand where you wrote, would be willing to try it once, in that there's something I'd like Johnny to understand that I don't think he does. What did you mean by that?
I can't say exactly what it was I wanted to impart, but I know that I thought that he was having difficulty in the sessions, and I think it was something about the process between the two of them that I was trying to clue him into.
What difficulty was Mr. Depp having in the sessions?
Having a voice.
What do you mean by that?
Ms. Heard had a jackhammer style of talking. She was very amped up. He had trouble talking at a similar pace. Their dialogue, he was cut off a lot. So I'm guessing this is what I'm not sure what it is, but there was something. Anyhow, this is how he didn't have a voice. He couldn't keep up with her rapid fire way of conversation. And so he was really overwhelmed.
In working with Amber and Mr. Depp, did Amber ever report to you any physical violence on behalf of Mr. Depp toward Amber?
Yes.
What type of physical violence did she report to you? Do you recall seeing photos from Amber Heard?
I have, but I don't remember when I saw them.
What do you recall about the photos?
Her face was bruised.
Do you recall where on her face you saw, on Amber's face you saw bruises?
I think they were around her eyes, but I couldn't be positive.
Did you witness abuse by either?
I didn't witness.
Had you worked with Mr. Depp before working with Amber and Mr. Depp?
No.
Is it your testimony that while Mr. Depp may have said he wasn't violent with any of his other partners, there was violence from Mr. Depp toward Amber, correct?
Yes, you're right. He had been well controlled, I think, for almost, 20, 30 years. And both were victims of abuse in their homes. But I thought he had been well controlled for decades. And then with Ms. Heard, he was triggered, and they engaged in what I saw as mutual abuse. Sometimes, I know she led on more than one occasion and started it to keep him with her, because abandonment and having him leave was her worst nightmare. And I think he may have initiated it on occasions too, that I'm less sure on.
And how did you come to the understanding that on some occasions Ms. Heard physically abused Mr. Depp?
Ms. Heard reported that.
What did Ms. Heard report to you?
That it was a point of pride, two things. It was a point of pride to her if she felt disrespected to initiate a fight, and was her father had beaten her, she was not going to. And the second one is what she reported to me, which is if he was going to leave her to de-escalate from the fight, she would strike him to keep him there. She would rather be in a fight than have him leave.
Did you speak to any other doctors or psychologists that worked with either Amber or Mr. Depp?
No.
Did you review any medical documents of Mr. Depp or Amber?
I reviewed a pharmacokinetic that Ms. Heard showed me, which has to do with neurotransmitter function, genetics, and medications.
Just to go back, Doctor, what professional degrees do you hold?
I have a couple of masters, a PhD, and a certified clinical nutrition certification.
Would you mind please just elaborating on that for the record?
Yes, I have a master's from early in my life in teaching and curriculum. I have a master's in psych. I have a PhD in clinical psychology. I have a CCN, which is a certified clinical nutrition certification.
And do you recall, Doctor, in what year you obtained your PhD?
Yes, I got it in '82.
And if very briefly, if you could just please, in summary fashion, just describe your employment history from 1982 forward after earning your PhD.
I collected clinical hours in hospitals and in psychiatric medical groups. I was employed to do some nutrition evaluation and intervention as well, but there were MDs behind me. We worked in concert. Then worked in a hospital with, I think that doctor was workers' comp. And then when I was, I have it out of order. Then I was on my own, but I was employed this is when I was employed by a psychiatric medical group to do kind of a combination of psychotherapy and some nutrition. And then since then, I have been a solo practitioner, out of network, word of mouth only, very small footprint, purposely, all of these years.
When did you become a solo practitioner?
Very soon, probably in '86.
So is it fair to say that as of 2015, you were already quite established as a solo practitioner?
Yes.
Generally speaking, what type of services did you provide your patients in 2015?
Adults only, individual or couples work, and with a limited number of people, there would have been neurotransmitter testing and some attention to lifestyle and how nutritional elements affect the brain.
And if you would just please describe for us lay people what a clinical psychologist does.
The first thing is evaluation, intake, gather material. The second thing, and the way I work, is during the intake process, could be one session, could be 4 sessions, depends on if it's an individual or a couple. I'm conceptualizing. I'm looking for the process. The content is something I make notes on, I care about. It leads me from session to session, but I'm really looking at process. What's going on between two people, or what's actually going on inside of someone. The third step is I show my hand. I talk about it. I try to get either 3 people in the room all on the same page with me, or one other person. This is what I see. And then the onus is on me to not just be a good friend and hold someone's hand and talk about mom, but to actually make change. And so I lay out, here are the things I think we need to work on. And then there are action steps for all of them, so that someone has a more directed sense of what they're doing in psychotherapy, as opposed to just coming in and talking about how they feel.
Is it your practice when you have a session with a couple that you take notes from the session?
I absolutely take notes from any session.
Do you take, at what time in relation to this session do you take the notes?
I'm taking them during the session, and they know it. Because I don't want hours and hours and hours of homework at the end of a clinical day. So the notes are often, a lot of typos, wrong pronouns here and there, but essentially I'm just trying to gather facts as I go.
Is it fair to say that you take the notes in a somewhat contemporaneous fashion?
Sure.
And do you take those notes in the ordinary course of your practice in your business?
Absolutely.
Do you maintain, or do you keep those notes as part of your treatment and regular course, ordinary course of business?
I do.
Thank you. And what type of information generally do you keep in your notes, other than what you've already testified about?
Whatever I want to. Anything that it could be content that I'm tracking, just so I know in the next session what kind of content we were talking about. And it could be process too.
Stand by, and I'll mark that as plans exhibit number 1. Showing exhibit 1 on the screen.
Just to confirm, have you seen this document before, Dr. Anderson?
Yes.
And what is it?
It's Christian Carino doing the first contact, and the second one is from Ms. Hurd, wanting to know how to get in touch with me.
But accepting what's been thrust upon us, when was your first couples therapy involving Ms. Hurd?
October 1st, 2015.
Was that an in-person session?
Yes.
Where was the session held?
In my office.
And Mr. Depp was also there, correct?
Yes.
How long was that first session?
3.5 hours.
Was that the first time that you had ever met Ms. Hurd in person?
I think so.
And was that the first time you had ever met Mr. Depp in person?
Yes.
Okay, now if you could please turn, and this is a multi-page exhibit, Mr. Nadelhoff did not show you. This is going to be Plaintiff's Exhibit 2.
Stand by.
Can I interrupt a second, Ben?
Sure.
Adam, can you turn up your microphone? Because everyone's a lot louder than you, and when you object, I struggle to hear you.
Can you hear me?
Well,
I know,
Michelle is a lot louder than you, so if you talk at the same time, I can't hear you.
All right, I'll see what I can. Yeah, I'll see what I can do.
Thank you.
And Dr. Anderson, if you could just take as long as you would like to familiarize yourself with this document. I'll just state for the record, these are documents that you produced that have a Bates designation 1 through 17.
Yes, I'm familiar.
What are these? Oh, well, strike that. Have you ever seen Plaintiff's Exhibit 2 before?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a redacted copy of my personal notes that I provided to you guys.
And are these, I think you testified in response to Mr. Nadelhoff's questioning that the names Ann Henry and Joey Davis are pseudonyms?
Yes.
And would you please just identify for us who Ann Henry is in real life?
Ann Henry is Amber Heard. Joey Davis is Johnny Depp.
And are these your notes that you took contemporaneously of the four couples strike that. Are these your contemporaneous notes that you took of the couples therapy sessions?
Yes.
Would these notes include any session that you had for Ms. Heard that was not part of the couples therapy?
No.
Did you have any sessions with Mr. Depp individually that weren't part of the couples therapy?
No, during this period of time, it's color coded. Black is couples, red is Ms. Heard, and blue is Mr. Depp. Whether I talked to them or saw them individually or as a couple, it was all in service of couples therapy.
Understood. And so these notes in Plaintiff's Exhibit 2 encompass all of the couples therapies sessions that you had with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, either when they appeared together or when they appeared separately in the context of your couples therapy. Is that correct?
I'm looking at one page. If you're talking about the entire redacted document, yes.
And I've asked you the question generally, but I want to ask you in the context of these 17 pages. Did you prepare these 17 pages of couples therapy notes in the ordinary course of your treatment of Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard?
Yes.
Did you maintain or keep them in the ordinary course of your practice or business?
I did.
So my question was, what is the significance of October 1, 2015?
I'm going to look at what I'm reading so that this makes sense to you. This can't possibly make sense, but it makes sense to me.
Okay.
They reported what they said to one another. So the first line is Ms. Heard talking, saying that Mr. Depp says to her, "No one likes you. You're getting fame from me. I'm falling out of love with you. You're a whore." She's reporting just in the first session just how bad the relationship is, just how mean they are to one another. And at that point, because I'm typing quickly as they go along, I'm switching into a different voice, more about the process between them, where she has, I believe, interrupted him. He says no more about what she says about him. And it's just that they're fighting and she has a hard time. She bites the bait. She can't let him talk, is my recollection. And from this, that's kind of what that is. So it gives me a sense of what they're doing at home. They're each reporting. This is what we say to each other.
Okay, I appreciate that, Dr. Anderson. I'm just going to try to break it down into little bits. So October 1, 2015 is the date of the first couple session, correct?
Yes.
And 2.5 means 2.5 hours long from start to finish?
I am guessing they were present for 2.5 hours, but that I waited, whatever the the ledger says, but I waited an hour for them to show up.
And Dr. Anderson, in that first bullet point that we can see, you write, "Jay says no one likes you, getting fame from me, falling out of love with you, whore." Jay is Johnny Depp?
Yes, but that was said by Ms. Heard.
So is it fair to say that Ms. Heard was saying that Johnny said to her, "No one likes you, you're getting fame from me, I'm falling out of love with you, whore"? That would have come from Mr. Depp, is that correct?
Ms. Heard reported that that's what Mr. Depp said to her at their worst. Yeah.
Did Amber, when Mr. Depp told you that Amber had hit him in the jaw, did Amber respond in any way? Did she deny it? Did she admit it?
I don't think she denied it, but what I believe from my notes was that she galloped off in a new direction, and they continued to talk, and there was no more that Johnny Depp was going to say about what he was reporting. It was more that they started into a fight. And I wrote that their process is a back and forth firing at each other. At that point he had some energy. And they don't communicate. They have terrible skills.
At any point during the first session, did Ms. Heard interrupt Mr. Depp when he was trying to talk?
Yes, she talked over him. She had rapid fire talking.
Did she interrupt him during your other sessions that are reflected in Plaintiff's Exhibit 2?
Yes, and I pointed out the process to her at some point, and she got it, that no one could actually have a decent dialogue with her if she was rapid firing and talking over and just barraging. It was a process issue.
You write, doesn't answer directly when he asks her a question. To what were you referring there?
Don't have a clue.
If I could direct your attention further down the page from plan, you see the notation to October 6, 2015.
Yes.
Was that the second couples session?
No, it's red. It's Amber alone.
So is it fair to say that you met alone with Amber for 2.25 hours in the context of the couples therapy? Is that correct?
Yes, this was to get her background material.
So tell us what you mean in that one section. He hits her, no closed fist. She hits back and now starts it for pride because
father
hit her. Would you please tell us what you meant by that?
This is her reporting to me. It's the only thing in this clinical session that apparently was about physical abuse, or else it would not have been redacted out. It's so when she said in terms of physical abuse that he hits her, a no closed fist means an open hand slap to me. And she says that she hits back and now she starts it and sometimes hits him first because her history is having been violated by her father physically. And just out of pride, she, if she's, a lot of things trigger her. And if she's triggered, she would hit him first.
And the he you're referring to is Johnny Depp, correct?
Yes.
When you said that she sometimes hits Johnny first because of pride, what did you mean?
She was sensitive to feeling disrespected and a number of other things. But, and if she felt disrespected, she had come out of her background history feeling that her pride needed to dominate and she needed to stand up for herself.
When Ms. Heard told you that Johnny Depp hits her or slaps her, Johnny Depp was not present, correct?
Correct. Okay. And it wasn't plural. It was, she referred to, well, I wrote he hits her. Yes. So maybe it was plural.
But he was not present when she made that assertion.
He was not.
Did Ms. Heard tell you that she socked Mr. Depp?
Yes. She was describing kind of the progression of the physical violence.
Did you have any understanding of what she meant when she admitted that she socks Mr. Depp?
Yes, because there were 3 lines above this that explained the progression a bit. And I've already said what it was. She felt she had to hit him back if he hit her. And so she always did. And
again, that entry is from a session where Mr. Depp was not physically present, correct?
That's right.
Okay, let's move to the next session, October 7, 2015. And this is a 3.5-hour session, is that correct?
Yes.
Was that an in-person session?
Yes.
Did both Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard attend?
No, this is blue. This is Mr. Depp's intake.
Understood. And let's move now toward the bottom of the page, and I think I'm finally getting the code right. So the next session occurred on October 14th, 2015, and it was the two of them for 3 hours. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that was another in-person session, true?
Yes.
And am I right to say that every single piece of your notes as to the October 14th, 2015 session has been redacted? Is that true?
Yes, but to clarify something earlier on the ledger,
Yes.
I wrote 2 hours couple, then Amber. It means he is the one who walked out of that session.
My question was, am I correct that all of your notes for the October 14th, 2015 couple session for 3 hours are completely redacted? Is that true?
Yes.
So, so the next session occurred on October 21, 2015, true?
True.
And it lasted 2 hours. It started as a couple, then Mr. Depp left, and then you spoke only with Amber, but in the context of couples therapy. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and let's go to the next session on page 10. The next session was on October 24th, 2015. And I can't see from the code, was that a couples therapy, or was it just one or the other of them attending?
No. This is a red phone session with Ms. Hurd.
Okay, great. And it lasted 1.5 hours?
Yes.
So the next session was, after that, was on October 29th, 2015, is that right?
Yes.
And that just...
That one? No, that one was canceled.
Oh, it was canceled. That's why it's so short. Okay. And then the one after that, still on page 10, was on November 12th, 2015.
There's an appointment on 11/4 that was canceled that I didn't put an entry on.
Okay. Well, that's helpful. What about November 12th? Was
Yes.
that a joint session?
Yes, it was.
And was that in person?
Yes.
Okay. And then the next session on page 11 is that even I can understand. So there was a no-show on December 4th, 2015. Is that right?
Yes. I'd like to clarify the no-shows.
Oh, please do.
I think they both told me, but I think Mr. Depp told me at one point. But I already knew because this happens with couples. When a couple is having a lot of trouble in sessions, but they're doing well at home and they're in a little bit of a honeymoon, period, they cancel instead of coming in because they know coming in will get them into conflict.
Okay. And fair to say that happened again on December 10th, 2015?
I can't tell which sessions they were sick or which sessions they were canceling because of this dynamic, but it was admitted and explained to me and I understood it fully.
Okay. And still on page 11, the next session was on December 15th, 2015, and it was a telephonic session. Is that right?
With Ms. Hurd.
That was with Ms. Hurd. Okay. You write, then last night, Monday, she slapped him as he sat there talking incoherently. Who slapped who?
I actually know what happened.
What happened?
This was, as I said, Ms. Hurd talking on the phone to me. Mr. Depp's mother was in ICU. He had been doing he was fucked up, as she would say, on a lot of drugs. And she slapped him because he was being incoherent and talking about being with another woman.
Did she tell you that he had hit her first, or was she the one who initiated the slap?
She initiated that one because I think she felt demeaned and threatened.
And this is what she reported to you, correct?
Yes.
He was not present. He was not on the call when she made these allegations. Was he?
No,
And you didn't see any of this, did you?
no,
And you didn't see her in person?
no.
After? Okay. Then there is a notation. Should she call police? Question mark.
Where is that?
That's right below what we were just talking about. There, in red, it says, should she call police? What does that refer to? So what did you mean?
That was her asking me.
Did you respond to her?
I believe I did.
Then you write, doesn't want to divorce, wants to want to divorce.
Yes.
What did you mean by that?
She loved him. He loved her. She believed that she wasn't stupid. She knew that what they were doing wasn't healthy. And so she wanted to divorce him, but she didn't. And yet it had escalated to this point. So she was trying to figure out what to do. And she had an entourage around her telling her what to do.
Who was her entourage?
She had a routine group of friends that stayed with her, lived in her home, probably as well as paid people that I don't know.
Do you recall the names of any of her entourage?
One was Rocky.
Directing your attention to the last snippet from that session, will she have advantage if she leaves him but files with police for abuse first? Was that a question that she asked you?
Yes, this was her talking out loud, trying to strategize for herself.
Showing Plaintiff's Exhibit 3 on the screen.
And Dr. Anderson, I think this is the same document that Mr. Nadelhoff showed you as Anderson Exhibit 6. So I'm not going to ask you to identify it again, but I do have a couple of questions about it that Mr. Nadelhoff did not ask. I believe you testified, and correct me if I'm wrong, that you have never spoken to any of Ms. Heard's other psychologists or therapists. Is that true?
That's true.
And putting that aside, when she refers to her own therapist in this Exhibit 3, do you know the name of that person, putting aside whether you had ever spoken to him or her?
I do not.
Okay. Did Ms. Heard ever explain to you why the nuances and complexity of her relationship with Mr. Depp would be lost on her own therapist?
I believe that she felt known in a more thorough way in terms of her behavior inside of the relationship.
And let's pick up where we left off on the bottom of page 11 of Plaintiff's Exhibit 2.
Okay.
And specifically the entry that begins on January 13. It's at the very bottom of page 11, literally the last line. Oh, that's it. On January 13, 2016, was this a joint session with Mr. Depp and Ms. Heard, or was this just with one of them?
It was only Miss Heard. And let me go back and see if it was phone. No, I'm sorry. It was in person. No, no, never mind. 11316 was Miss Heard in person.
And do you know how long this in-person session was with Ms. Heard on January 13, 2016?
I think it was probably just 1 hour.
Okay. You write, didn't fight on island till last day. On island started to get into something. What were you referring to there?
Well, Christmas had occurred, and the goal was they had a lot of people going to his island, and they were going to be together. And the goal was to try and get through the Christmas holiday without fighting. And so she was reporting on that.
you write, he got aggressive, threatening, didn't touch him, hid in bathroom. What were you referring to there?
What she reported to me, which was an improvement that she didn't participate.
So is it fair to say that she told you she did not hit him at that time?
Yes, that's what I believe my notes say, yes.
Then you write, she threw can at him since home fighting, then she better. Who is the she who threw a can at him?
Miss Heard.
And the him whom she threw a can at was Mr. Depp, correct?
Yes.
Did you receive that email on or about March 8th in the morning at 6:23 a.m.?
Well, apparently because I responded in the morning.
Okay, well then we'll skip it. We'll go right back to your response. So the response at the top of the page, the second entry, I suppose, did you write that email to Mr. Carino on March 8th, 2016 at 7:27 a.m.?
I did.
And fair to say that you weren't enthusiastic about the idea of making a house call?
I was not.
And Mr. Nadelhaft asked you about what it was you wanted Johnny to understand about the process.
And I was wrong, because I can see now the date of it, looking at it more carefully. This is after the relationship has devolved considerably. So what I think was guessing was earlier in the relationship. I don't know what it was I wanted him to understand.
Let's go back to Exhibit 2 then, please. And we're not going to repeat. We're just picking up where we left off. And now we've gotten up to page 13 of the 17 page of your notes. So if we can start, exactly. Do you see where the notes of your session on June 18th, 2016 begin?
Yes.
And was this a solo session, couples session between you and Mr. Depp only?
This is with Mr. Depp, it's blue, it's just the two of us.
Gotcha. And it lasted 1 1/3 hours?
Yeah.
You write, fight on her April 22nd birthday. He late, huge fight. His mother died on the 20th. I think I know what you're referring to, but if you could please describe that for the record.
1 second. This is when I got the Scaramanga Productions on my phone. So he found me at home, which was new. Domestic violence charges had already been made. His mother had just died on the 20th.
Well, when he told you that there was a fight on April 22 birthday, was that Ms. Heard's 30th birthday?
I think it was.
And is he telling you that he arrived late for the birthday dinner party and there was a huge fight?
Yes.
Do you know who Tasha Von Rhee is?
Yeah, well, I know her name. I know she was someone that Ms. Heard was in a relationship with.
Then you write, was chaotic violence, but gave as good as she got. What does that mean?
I believe I'm quoting. I think I'm quoting what some of this is just my typing the words he's using while he's talking. He's also very verbal when no one's interrupting him. And I think he talked about how chaotic it was, how violent it was, and she gave as good as she got. That's kind of a direct quote. That's not my language.
Directing your attention further down the page to the entry for July 13th, 2016, 3 hours Amber in person. Was that an in-person meeting you had, a couples therapy with only Ms. Heard?
No, this is not couples therapy. This is Ms. Heard by herself. I wrote in person.
Oh, okay. So just to be clear, what follows these are your notes for your individual treatment of Ms. Heard having nothing to do with couples therapy?
Not true. In my mind, the dust had not settled on the couple yet, and this was just kind of aftermath of the kind of falling apart of the marriage. But
okay, I didn't mean to mischaracterize anything. I was just trying to suss out what it was.
no, this is not individual therapy for her. This is about the marriage.
If we could please go to Exhibit 6, Lucian, which is a new document. When I say new, it was produced by Dr. Anderson's office, but new in the sense that Mr. Nadelhoff didn't ask her about it. Dr. Anderson, have you ever seen this document before?
Of course, I created it.
Okay, and what is it?
It's a treatment summary. When I was first subpoenaed, or my notes were required years ago, my notes are jumbly. They don't say a lot. They're confusing. They're, as you've seen, or you haven't seen, actually. So I did what psychologists do. You go through all of those notes, and your brain, because it's not as if you're not left with a very, I hope, a very clear sense of what went on. So I took everything I thought and believed conceptually about them. I went through all of my notes, and I wrote this treatment summary.
And then if you could go up.
Paragraph that's still there.
Yeah, and I want to ask you about that one paragraph. I think you've described this in the course of your testimony, but I did want to ask you about your sentence. She reported always hitting him back as a point of pride, but admitted that she eventually initiated the hitting herself. Is the she you're referring to Ms. Heard?
It is.
And is the him you're referring to Johnny Depp?
It is.
Okay, let's move to the next page, please. And I just want to focus on a snippet on page 3. Sorry. You write, she reported trying to initiate a fight with him one night by slapping him when she was offended by what he said. Is the she you're referring to there, Ms. Heard?
Yes, it is.
And is the he you're referring to Johnny Depp?
Yes, it is.
Then in the last sentence, it was also at this time that she showed me photos of her injuries. When did Ms. Heard show you photos of her alleged injuries?
Well, to the best of my pulling together the information I wrote down, I'm saying it was right after that fight. And my recollection is she came in, she talked to me by phone and then came in the next day. Or at least I thought that somewhere around the time she got the injury. I know she came in person to show me.
Did she show you photos or did she show you?
Both.
You said she showed you photos, and so is it your testimony that she showed you photos of her injuries shortly after the alleged event?
Somewhere in the period while she still had injuries, she showed me photos, but she also came in and showed me in person.
And what did she show you in person?
Bruising on her face.
Other than the bruising on her face, what other injuries did she show you?
I don't remember. There may have been more, but I don't remember.
And you weren't present during the alleged physical injuries, correct?
Correct.
So the only basis you had with respect to the cause of the injuries was what Ms. Heard told you, correct?
Yes.
And you write, the physical violence that occurred between them appeared to me to be mutual. You never actually witnessed any physical violence by Mr. Depp or by Ms. Heard, correct?
Never.
And you said that they were each victims of domestic violence, both in their family. They were each victims of domestic violence in their families. What did you mean by that?
They were each beaten by parents.
Go back very briefly to Exhibit 2.
Stand by.
Page 11. And after the part where this refers to a session that was just you and Ms. Heard, correct?
Yes.
And this call, which was just between you and Ms. Heard and not Mr. Depp involved, that occurred on or about December 15th, 2015?
Yes.
And was it just shortly after that call when Ms. Heard showed you pictures and actually came into your office? Is that right?
She came in on 12/17, so yes.
So Ms. Heard came in on December 17th, and you saw bruises on her face. Is that correct?
I believe that's when.
Was that bruising that you observed similar to the bruising that appeared on the photographs that she showed you?
Yes.
You testified that what you saw in person was similar to what you saw in the photographs Amber gave you, correct?
Yes.
When she came into your office on December 17th, what did her face look like?
What I recall is not purple, green, and blue, but just a darkening, so kind of a darker gray blue sort of thing. But I don't have a photo of it. I don't remember that well.
Is that, Dr. Anderson, consistent with your understanding that there were no other entries on December 15 or December 17th relating to physical abuse?
You know, there was nothing about physical abuse, nothing in that next session. It was all about Christmas and her therapist telling her one thing. Now,
and what was the size of the bruise on her face that you observed on December 17th?
maybe like this, in more than one place, about an inch.
You said it was in, so is it fair to say those are small bruises in more than one place? So there was, how many 1-inch size bruises were on her face that you observed?
I'm not a good person to ask this question to. I don't really remember. I wasn't looking to memorize it. I think there's other data that will support this, not from me.
A few minutes ago, you briefly spoke about seeing bruises about an inch on Amber Heard's face. You recall that testimony?
Yes.
And you were making motions with your fingers.
But I was saying multiple. I'm not saying one.
Right. You were seeing multiple bruises on Amber's face.
Yes.
Correct. When you were talking about how the size of it, your fingers were under your eyes. Did you remember seeing the bruises under Amber's eyes?
That's what I recall. They may have been in other places throughout her body. I don't remember, but I do remember her face.
You could turn to page 13. In the blue, where it says was chaotic, violent. Do you know what Mr. Depp was referring to there?
What I said previously, and I'll say it again, he's kind of doing a retrospective of trying to understand the relationship, and is characterizing it as chaotic and violent, but she gave as good as she got, and she started it, but he's complaining, but he's also just kind of describing what the relationship was. His mother is dead at this point. The relationship is not good. It's over pretty much, and he's trying to come to terms with it, and he still loves her and is mourning. So he's a very articulate man, and when left alone to speak, he can describe intelligently what's going on. I think while he's talking, and I'm not trying to be obtrusive with my taking notes, I'm listening, I'm talking, but I'm also copying down a word here and there. So my belief is that those are his words.
And Mr. Depp, I think you testified about this, but I just want to make sure clear. Mr. Depp told you Amber gave as good as she got, correct?
Correct.
Did you ask what Mr. Depp meant by gave as good as she got?
I was pretty aware of what he meant. I agreed.
What did you understand Mr. Depp to mean?
All right, I have. She initiated fights. She started violence. She rose to the challenge if he started first, and so she, in my opinion, that had been established throughout the relationship, that she fought as hard as he did, and he tried to de-escalate far more than I think she did.
Do you know, did Mr. Depp talk about his fingertip with you before June 18th, 2016?
No, because I would have written it when he first mentioned it to me.
Did you ever see Mr. Depp with an injury to his finger during any of your sessions with Mr. Depp, or counseling, or sessions together with Amber Heard?
During that session, yes, he showed me.
On June 18th, 2016, but before June 18th, 2016, did you ever see an injury to Mr. Depp's finger?
No. But no, I didn't.
When we were going through Amber's, the incidents where Amber described Mr. Depp being violent, Mr. Depp was not present, correct?
That's true.
All right, thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll go ahead and take our lunch for the afternoon now. No outside research, not talk to anybody, and we'll give you till 2:15, okay? So you can be excused with Debbie Lusa now. Thank you. Right. For this afternoon, do you need this TV anymore for this afternoon? For the first witness, or? The last witness, so we can put it down during lunch. Okay, perfect. All right, we'll be back at 2:15 then. Thank you.